Hey everybody, today I want to have a quick conversation around health and vitality. And it's the conversation that is a recap of a super interesting conversation I had about 3 weeks ago with a genius actually in the area of biotech. This is a gentleman that has more than 200 patents. I think it's more than 30 clinical trials, more than 30 or 40 peer-reviewed papers. Just a genius in his area line of work. He's a scientist, etc. And we met with him, and he was giving us the origin story of his biotech company. And I love origin stories. Part of my favorite piece of the superhero mythology are the origin stories, how they came into being, how they acquired their unique abilities. I always love origin stories. So this is the origin story of a biotech company behind a company that we hope you will soon come to hear lots about. So almost 20 years ago, this biotech company was formed to create powerful nutrients and ingredients that they could then sell to the pharmaceutical industry so that this pharmaceutical industry could build these very powerful, useful drugs, help a lot of people, make the world a better place. But then, as they started to go through the details of the human ailments they were trying to help with, there was a break in logic that led to the origin story. Here was the break in logic. He said, Sunil is the doctor's name, he said that it became very apparent to him that it was not logical to try to use a pharmaceutical approach to cure a lifestyle created disease or a lifestyle created ailment. And he said and there's some fundamental reasons why that will never work out long term. He says, one, the creation of the ailment happened at a very slow pace over a very long period of time because it's a function of lifestyle. How people move, how much they move or not move, what they eat or not eat, how they eat, what they eat, all these things aid into the creation of the ailment, right? The thing that's going wrong that now needs to be fixed, whether it be high blood pressure, or any other ailments that's largely influenced by lifestyle. All aren't, but many are. But then he said the purpose of a pharmaceutical is to have an almost instant effect, right? Because when you think about it, you don't go grab pain medicine because your knee's hurting, and you don't grab that pain pill or that pain medicine hoping that by this time next week that pain will go away. The whole pharmaceutical industry is actually built on instant results, which they can do. But in order for a pharmaceutical to have an instant result, the potency of what they give you has to be high enough to create that instant result. And that's what pharmaceutical drugs do. You take a pain medicine, your headache goes away within an hour, etc. He said, but the problem this creates is that two main things that I remember. There were two things that I remembered, right, in listening to him tell his story. He said that when you create a substance that is that powerful enough to have an immediate effect, the problem is when you take a pill or you take some medicine, it gets into your body and it gets circulated throughout your body, right? It doesn't just go to the one specific thing you're trying to fix. You take a pill because your knee hurts, and that drug you take now circulates all throughout your body. So it helps what you took it for, but then it also goes to different areas of your body. which may or may not be that important in the short term. Here's the problem. When what you're trying to fix is lifestyle generated, that means that you're going to continue to have the thing you're trying to fix show up over and over and over, and you're going to continue to take this very potent fix for it over and over. You're in this cycle loop, and he said, and that continual, constant, longer term circulation of that potent and direct effect often has a negative effect in a completely different part of your body, which is why you can take a drug to do one thing, but if you take it too long or take too much of it, it could damage your liver and things like that, right? There's a secondary targeting effect. That's one thing he said you would almost always have when you try to marry up pharmaceutical fixes to lifestyle generated ailments. He said the other thing is when you take in anything in your body, you metabolize it, right? You absorb it and you break it down into different byproducts. And he said quite often in the area of drugs, one, because of the potency, and two, because many of the components of drugs are synthetic or man-made, that when you break them down, the byproducts, the secondary metabolites, the byproducts of you breaking them down, those often are now being circulated through your body that may often have a negative effect. That's why those two things, and there were a couple others, but those two big things, reasons why there are so many potential side effects when you take a pharmaceutical drug. Now, is there a place for pharmaceutical drugs? 100%, right? There's absolutely a place in medicine for drugs. Believe me, I'm in a fan for that. But the thing that he really highlighted on, but he said, but when you're trying to fix something that's generated from lifestyle, which means you have done the things that created the bad feeling or the hurtness or the pain, or the bad situation, is the result of you doing these things long term over time. You're probably still doing them now while you're trying to fix them. So the biotech company said, well, how can we ever create products to help people in a way that they expect to be helped, like right now, but not have them create these secondary targeting effects and these secondary metabolite effects, right? That when you break them down effects. And there's a very logical answer to that. He said, well, we concluded that one place that we can look in the human experience where we've interacted with substances habitually over very long periods of time are the human food chain. If the things in the human food chain, we've been interacting with them for eons, for hundreds, if not thousands upon thousands of years. So our body clearly understands how to deal with the components of the food chain, the metabolites that result when we break down food. Our body is optimized to take advantage of things that exist in our natural food chain. So then they went on the hunt for substances in the human food chain that had the potential to have these pharmaceutical-like effects if you could figure it out, understand the mechanisms of action, what they actually did in the body. And lo and behold, they started off probably with things that were fabled to have effect, right? We all know these fruits and things in the foods that for centuries, people have been saying these ancient cultures have taken this tea or they've done this substance because it has these unbelievable effects in the human body. You see a lot of that, especially in Asian culture, Indian culture, African culture. You see a lot of that in these cultures that go back thousands of years. They have isolated down on certain plants that seem to have medicinal use. So the challenge became, can we take some of these plants, put them in a lab environment, test them to see do they actually have an effect? If they do have an effect, can you isolate down in what are the components of the plant that generate that effect? And if you could do that, and you could isolate on those components of these plants, could you replicate their effect in a repeatable, predictable lab scientific environment. That was the mission. And over 20 years, they were able to do that.